So we have seen that a modifier, can be multiple modifiers in Java. So
Hmm.
like context modifier is static, access modifiers will define or change, modify the access of the class or the class elements, and
Hmm.
the class it impacts on I mean these are the four access modifier that we have, and only two of them is applicable on class level, right?
Hmm.
Default and public. And in default, when we try to use it at the class level, we don't need to type default, right?
Hmm.
If
Yeah.
we don't write any modifier, then any access modifier, then it will be treated as default.
Diff.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then there are class elements. We have known that there are 5 class elements in Java, right? Variable, methods,
Hmm.
constructor, instance block, and static block, right? We can
Hmm.
combine the
Yes.
blocks into a single element as well. So
Hmm.
out of these three, out of these 5, only 3 can be accessed outside the method, right? Or 3 can be
Hmm.
called. Oh, sorry, outside the
Hmm.
class only 3 can be accessed, and it can be called. But the instance block and the static block cannot be
Hmm.
accessed from outside the class, right? One executes during the class load time and one executes during the object creation. We have no authority to access it from outside the class, right? So if we cannot access it out from outside the class, and if we cannot call it again and again, so
Hmm.
there is no requirement to make it invisible or to reduce their accessibility, right? To increase or
Hmm.
reduce their accessibility, it doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
So that's the thing. So it only, so in class elements, access modifiers works with only variables, methods, and constructors. Cool.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. So until now we have seen, we have covered two, public and default. These two we have covered in our last session, right?
Hmm.
So
Yes.
if, and the packages are nothing, just the folder structure in Java, right? The folders are
Hmm.
called packages. Named folders are called packages in Java. That too specifically if they are inside the SRC, right? So these
Hmm.
all are
Yes.
packages. Even if you go at package, then this com and all, and we have seen in the last session that this com is a folder, right? This June batch is
Hmm.
also again a folder. Nested folders. This is com and
Hmm.
dot. These all are nested folders, and these are folder names. And these folders are called packages in Java, right?
Hmm.
So we know that in Java, if we provide public access modifier to a class, then it can be accessed from any other package, right?
Yes.
And if we don't type anything, then it will be treated as default and it will be accessible only within the package, or
Hmm.
if it has the child packages, then inside the child packages as well. Cool. So we have seen two in the last time, and we have seen the class level
Hmm.
access modifiers we have seen, and that exists only two. So we have seen these two, right? Now we will see the element level, and in the elements we will only cover method, cause the same logic that will work for the method will work for variables and constructors as well, right?
Hmm.
So we have seen this thing. So let's do one thing. Create one package runner, and inside this package also let's create class level access modifiers, and then put this runner inside class level access modifier, and make another package class element level access modifier, and over here also we need to write a runner. Cool. Now we can
Hmm.
use the same classes that we have created inside these folders. So see, now we need class element level model access modifiers. So inside this again, if we try to access the public class, equals to new, and then public class, right? Inside the
Hmm.
public class we will write, we haven't written anything, right, in the public class in the last session,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
today we will write a method, and that to public.
Okay.
So public class embed method. Cool. So what we will do, we will try to call this public class m1 method, right?
Hmm.
See, public class m1 method, and if I try to execute it, then I can access it, right? And I can execute it. Public class m1 method, cool.
Hmm.
And now I will in the default class. So default class I won't be able to access from outside it, right? So
Hmm.
I need to make default inside the default modifier. This is default class, right? So I need to make a default, okay, public class with default method.
Hmm.
Public class with default method. Yeah, instead of making different classes, it would be better if I just create a single class and insert all the methods. It will be more helpful. So we are at access modifiers, okay, runner, and class level access modifiers, okay, okay. Okay, I would require, okay, cool, that was better. Okay, so we will take only class A only, cool. And then I will create a method public void m1, and then I will sys out a hyphen m1, right? This is a public method, right?
Hmm.
And let me remove this. So now we don't need the accessibility, so the class will be public now for every part. Okay, this noise will be also be in our recording. So if I try to access this embed method, I will be able to access because this embed method is public, right?
Hmm. Yes, sir.
The thing is, it's inside the same class as well, right? So that's
Hmm.
why it is visible. So
Hmm.
I can do one thing, because we need to see that the default methods don't work if the class is not inside it. So let me create another package, and this package will be model, and we will move our class A inside this model. Okay, not nodes, cancel, and model, right? So now our A class is in the model, right? Model package, and
Hmm.
our runner is in, and my runner is in
Model. Which?
access
Model A.
modifiers, class element access modifier package.
Hmm.
Runner, and runner has model, and I am inside model class element and level access modifier. Packages are different, right?
Hmm.
So this was the public method, so I was able to run it, access it, and if I am able to access it, I can run it, right? So
Hmm.
let's create m2 method. Okay, it would be better if m1, instead of m1 I can make it public method, right?
Hmm.
Then a public method, cool. So
Hmm.
let's try to write default, right? For default I don't need to write anything. Default
Hmm.
method, default method, and sys out a default method, a default method, cool. Now we can write private void private method sys out a private method, and protected method, protected method, right? Four type of
Hmm.
access modifiers we have written, four
Hmm.
types of method, right? Public is there, protected is there, default is there, and private is there, right?
Right. Hmm.
So let's go to our runner. Okay, so m1 method does not exist anymore, right? So I need to call public method,
Hmm.
and then what I can do, this is access is public,
Hmm.
and a dot Then if I try to access the default method, right, there is a default method inside here, right? There is a default method. See, this is the default method, right? So default method copy paste. But if I try to access it, I will get an error that is not public, right? Cannot be accessed outside the package.
Package.
So default method is not public. So this is the error, cannot be accessed outside the method. So we will do this, right? And the next one will be, oh okay,
Right.
wait, the protected method is there, right? Another method, protected method is there. Protected. See, this is protected method, right? So what is the case with protected method? That this method can be accessed in the same package. It is not inside the same package, right?
Yeah.
Or outside the package. We are outside the package, right? A is in the model folder, right? Model package, and we are inside the class element level access modifier package. So the packages are different. So outside the package, it can be accessible only inside the
Public.
class element, inside the child classes. Cool. So what does it mean? It means that if my caller, like I'm trying to use A is public method, right? A is public method I am trying to access. So right now if I try to execute this, I will get the protected method has private access, right? Even though it protected method, if you go inside, okay, protected, right, delimited protected, and run it again. Now we'll see has protected access, right? And we cannot access it inside the, I can access it inside the
Same package, but accessed only within the package or by child class.
or inside the child class, right?
Hmm.
So if I'm trying to access this A is the parent class, right? And parent class is a method which can be accessed from the child class, right? And if I then I'm unable to access it because it's not the child, right? This method is not a child, right? That's why I'm unable to access. See, this is the most important thing. Then private is also easy, default is easy, public is easy. This is the trickiest part in the access modifier. Rest is easy. So try to understand that what the definition says is that in protected access modifier, what it does, the access becomes restricted inside the package, like the default, plus outside the package only inside the child classes. So we are not inside the package, right? The package is
Package,
model.
yeah.
So inside the package you are not accessing. So what is the criteria to access outside the package? The criteria
We
is
should use the child class.
we can use only the child class can use it, right? Outside the package only child class can use it. So cool. So if I extend this class, then will I mean I will be eligible or not? Because I will extend, say, then I should be
Yeah,
eligible,
it
right?
will be eligible. Yeah.
Right. Or and see, if I try to run it, then I'll get an error. And this is the part, this is the trick part where everyone, and it's not a trick part, I mean the definition seems to be misleading. Because the thing is, and see, I am unable to access the protected method, right? If I'm trying to access it, so I'll make it I'll commit it out, right? So if I will try to call the protected method from here, then what will happen? Because protected is non-static method, right? Static method cannot access the non-static method, right? So if I'll create another method, public void m1, which is an instance method, and if I'll try to call this protected method, then I'm eligible, right? Why I am eligible? Because this method is from the parent, right? So the thing is, and now please, I mean, please take this. I mean, please try to understand this. This is very important. Why I'm able to access call this line over here, and why I'm not able to call this line over here, right? I'm calling it the same method, right? and I have extended as well this class.
Hmm.
Then only
Hmm.
I'm able to get this because it's visible inside the child class. So
Hmm.
what happens when I take this protected method from my parent class, right?
Hmm.
So the access modifier is for parent. That means it will be visible to only child class, right?
Hmm.
It will be visible for this class. It will be visible. It's obvious. But inside the child class, it will be also be visible. So inside this child class, it is also visible, right? Inside this
Hmm.
child class.
Hmm.
But inside this child class, it comes as a private entity. And what does it mean
Hmm.
by private entity? That in private entity, it will not be visible outside the class. So
Hmm.
I am taking a reference variable over here, right?
Hmm.
So a has a reference variable, right?
Hmm.
So I am trying to use that reference variable. So the reference variable of a will not show you this protected method.
Hmm. Hmm.
You cannot
Okay.
access a's method when you get it. When you get it in your class by inheritance, then you can access it, right?
Hmm.
Let me give you another example. Like for example, this is runner, right? Let's suppose there is a class C, right? If
Hmm.
I extends class, I extends runner, right? Okay, let's say
Hmm.
that I extends class A. Cool. Okay. Model. This is from model. Yes, cool. So suppose that the class C extends A, right?
Hmm.
So class C, and if I make another runner, temp runner, PSVM. Class C has nothing, right, inside it.
Hmm.
So if I make then object of class C, C equals to new C, right? So how many objects will be visible? Only public method. Why?
Hmm.
Because public method is accessible anywhere from anywhere, right?
Hmm. Yes.
And then the default method, why default method is not visible? Because the
It
class
will be
A is
only.
here, package is
Hmm.
default, right? That's the
Yes.
default is not visible. Private is not
Hmm.
visible because private, we cannot see a private element
Hmm.
anywhere outside the class. I mean, it is not
Hmm.
visible outside the class. Private element we
Hmm.
cannot even see. It can be used inside the class only. That's the use
Yes.
of private. So we cannot see the public, oh sorry, default, and we cannot see the private, right? So what's
Hmm.
left? Protected, right? Why I'm not seeing protected over here? Because I am the third party class right now, right? Because
Hmm.
I'm going to use inside the temp runner, right? So
Hmm.
temp runner cannot access the protected method because temp runner is not a child class, right?
Hmm.
So this is the one thing that people think that it is going in this way because temp runner is not the child class. That's why it is not able to access the protected method. But
Hmm.
if I extend the class A, now class, oh my bad, if I extend the class A, now temp class is a child class of class A, right? Then
Hmm.
people get confused that it should be visible, right? Because now
Hmm.
it's a child class of A. But that's not
Hmm.
how thing goes. Because what happens? Okay, you understand what's the use of private method? Private method will not be visible outside the class, right? It can be
Yes, sir.
accessed from inside the class only. So
Yes.
what happens when the C class, when C class extends A, right? So what
Hmm.
happens, like this is the class, right? So whenever
Hmm.
this happens, so what will happen is that public method will become over here, right? Public method will be here, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And private method will not go because private method is not visible outside the class. So
Hmm.
if it's not visible, you cannot inherit it if you cannot see it, right? If you don't know
Hmm.
your father has a property, then
Hmm.
you cannot access it, right? How can you use it that if you don't know it, right? So that's the
Hmm.
thing. This thing is private. It's not even shared with the child. Then this protected
Hmm.
is only shared with the child, right? So this
Hmm.
protected only shared with the child. So what happens that when this we copy this and take it over here, then instead of
Hmm.
protected, it becomes private.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
its accessibility becomes private, but the thing is, its accessibility becomes private. But if you again try to extend the class C, then again this will be visible to you because
Hmm.
it works as a private, but it is protected, right? To a child again, it
Hmm.
will go and it will treat as a private. So if
Hmm.
it is in your class but it is working as a private, then what will happen? That C it's a private, right? Private method. So private method I cannot access, right? So
Hmm.
that's why it is not visible. Understood?
Yes, sir.
If you are confused, then please tell me again. We'll cover this section again because this is the only important part. One more
Hmm.
important topic is from here. So the only thing is, it's like whenever we try to protected protected access modifiers make the class elements, variables, methods, and constructor accessible within the same package or outside the package, but to the child classes, right, or the base classes.
Hmm.
So if I am a child class, then that method will be visible inside me, but not as a public, but as a private entity, right?
Hmm.
And private
Yes,
entity
sir.
cannot be accessed using the reference variable, right?
Yes,
Because
sir.
private
Hmm.
entities are not visible
Can.
outside the class. It is visible
Hmm.
only inside the class, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Let me give just
Yeah.
1 second. Okay, so this is the one thing. So can you explain me? Then we can remove the examples. Now, can you explain me in this runner, why in this
Hmm.
runner we are not able to access this, even though we are extending class A?
Because we are accessing here with through an object. So if we access it through an object, it the keyword will be turned from protected to private. So
Okay.
the method itself will not be visible for us.
Okay. So I mean, I'm just saying that it will become private, right?
Hmm.
Internally, it does not become private, but it will act
Yeah.
as a private.
Hmm.
It will act as a private method. It will be inherited using the protected keyword, but it will act as a private
It is private. Yeah.
private entity. But if you extend the class A,
Hmm.
then also you will be able to access it, right? If you extend
Hmm.
class A. So the thing is, it we are trying to access a protected element which is inherited, so which is inherited by A, but it will be visible only to the child class, and that too directly, not
Hmm.
through the access modifier, because when I'm trying to access it using A, it is acting as a private method and it is not visible to me, right? So that's why. And even
Hmm.
I have cut it and pasted it, but if I try to access it, then it's not visible, right? So what I have done over
Hmm.
here, I copy pasted it from the line. So that's why if we are trying to run it, then it will give me an error that it is having the protected access, right? Because we are trying to access it to the variable, and protected method acts as a private entities, right? It is not visible outside the class. But if I
Hmm.
extend it, right? So now I have this method right inside me. That's why when I try to access it in this way from instance area, then I will be able to access it, right? Even
Hmm.
I would have able to access it using, I mean, okay, wait, okay, okay, like here as well. But the wrong thing over here is that we are in the static area, right? We cannot
Hmm.
access instance context area methods from the static context area method, right? So
Hmm.
that's why we will get the error. Non-static method cannot be referenced from the static context. We are not getting error that it is protected, right? We are getting error
Hmm.
that context exception we are getting over here, not the protected access exception, right? So this thing needs to know. This is the one of the most important thing that we require. So it will throw an error. So let's just run it again. And okay, engine commented, and then let me write protected elements act as a private entity, hence not visible, through a reference variable. Cool. And protected element direct access inside the class. Cool. That's why it is accessible over here, not accessible over here, right? This is the one thing, right? Most important concept. And the third and the last item is a dot private method, right? And private method obviously again will not be visible if I try to access it. Why? Because private method
Will be only visible inside the
inside the class.
class.
We cannot access it outside the class, right?
Hmm.
So this are the this will also give an error. So we can, so the baseline is we can only access the private methods, right?
Hmm.
If we want to access outside the package. Otherwise, we have only child classes that we can use, and the child and the protected methods we can use inside the child class only. But the child, it will come inside the child class as
Hmm.
private members, right?
Hmm.
Which cannot be accessed by other classes using the reference variable.
Hmm.
Nice. And then one of the most important question, most important interview question. See, one thing that we have covered in the last section as well, that public is the most acceptable, or the highest level of access is provided by public, right?
Yes.
Then it is protected. Can be accessed from any package, right? Then
Hmm.
protected
Hmm.
can be accessed inside the package or outside the package, but only inside the child classes.
Right. Yes. Hmm.
Default can be accessed only inside the same package. Private,
Hmm.
not visible outside the class.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
even inside the same
Outside.
package also you cannot use.
Yeah.
So
Outside. It is not visible outside the class.
yes. So what will happen that this is the flow, right? Most
Hmm.
access privilege, less, and then less, and this less, right? So this is the
Hmm.
greatest access privilege we have. Then this is the less, then this is the less access privilege, this is the less access privilege, right? So most important question. Okay. Yeah, okay. Interview question. This is most important interview question, and it is okay. Class A I have, right? That's it. I have a class A, right? And public void M1 it is. Cool.
Hmm.
So A hyphen M1, and then what I'll do is B. I'll class create a method B. Okay, my bad. And I'll try to, okay, let me put it inside a package. Overriding access modifier, right? What is this? Overriding access modifier, right?
Hmm.
So we know method overloading, overriding, right? So we are not going to
Hmm.
deep dive into it. We just see that what will happen
Okay.
if we try to override the access modifier. So in
Hmm.
overriding, what's the concept? One class needs to have the same method as of class B, right?
Hmm.
So this is overriding, right? We have
Hmm.
overridden, and if we can even do this thing, we can write the
Hmm.
override. And what does it do?
Hmm.
If the class is not, if the main method is not overriding, then it will throw an error. See, method
Hmm.
is not override from methods from its superclass. What is a superclass?
Hmm.
Object class, and
Parent list.
object class does not have a main class, right?
Hmm.
Because the default class of all Java classes are object class. So what will
Object.
happen? I need to make it extended, right? Now no
Hmm.
error, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so it will work as a check only. So
Hmm.
now what will happen? And the access modifier is public, right?
Hmm.
So runner, and okay. So what will I do? If I make b equals to new b, cool,
Hmm.
and b dot m1, and if I try to run it, then it will run fine, right?
Hmm.
Taking some time. Okay, cool. B hyphen m1, right?
Hmm.
But the thing is, the method is private, right? Public,
Hmm.
and the this method is public, right?
Hmm.
What will happen if the method over here, I'll make it protected, cool, and then over here the method is
Hmm.
public, right? So what I have done right now,
Hmm.
my parent method had protected access, right? My
Hmm.
parent method had protected access, and I'm making
Hmm.
the child method, what the method that I'm overriding, and made its access privilege to be public, right? This is
Hmm.
what's happening, right? A class is having protected and the B
Hmm.
class is having public, right?
Public. Hmm.
So what we are doing over here, that we are increasing the access privilege, right?
Hmm.
From protected we are moving towards the public, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Let's see if we run it, is there some error? B hyphen m1, right? So that means
Hmm.
increasing the access privilege while overriding the methods it's allowed, right?
Hmm.
Okay, cool. Now let's do one thing. Let's create another method, public void m2.
Okay.
Okay, and a n hyphen m2. Cool. And now this time this has a public access, right? Highest access privilege it's having right now.
Hmm.
So let's copy paste it and try to override this method as well. At the rate override. And now what I'll do, I will, if I run now, it we are not changing the access privilege, right? B dot m2,
Hmm.
because there is, this is the highest public, the highest access privilege, right? So we
Hmm.
cannot make it more higher, right? So
Hmm.
what if I try to reduce it to protected? Cool. Now if I
Hmm.
run this, attempting to assign a weaker access privilege, earlier it was public,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So Java allow you to increase the access privilege while overriding, right?
Hmm.
But you cannot decrease
Decree.
the access privilege. Cool.
Hmm. Hmm.
So need to make it public again and comment it out. Cool.
Hmm.
So what we have seen, that while overriding,
Hmm.
okay, important, while overriding access privilege, right? We are talking, we are speaking the same language what Java uses, right? Access privileges.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we cannot, access privileges cannot be
Cannot be decreased.
reduced to weaker
Weak.
privileges, right? While overriding.
Hmm.
And the privilege pre v I l e g e, सही तो है spelling, spelling is right, isn't it? Okay, e g e,
PRI.
oh yes, pri, cool. Okay, so while overriding, access privilege cannot be reduced to a weaker
Hmm.
access privilege while assigning a stronger access privilege is allowed. Cool. This is the
Hmm.
most important thing again, right? While overriding, because a lot of people don't know this. These two questions are important. These two are the only important interview questions. One is, can we assign a weaker access privilege while overriding a method or constructor or a variable? Cool. And the other one
Hmm.
is, why we cannot access the protected class member inside a child class using a
With an object.
reference variable.
Hmm.
This is the second. And the third question, this is not very obvious and less asked, but it is one of the important thing. The, can we use access modify, or can we use access modifiers with blocks as well? By blocks means instance block or static block as well, right?
Hmm.
So the
Hmm.
third
Yes.
question should be very innate and basic. You can deduct it, right? Because it cannot
Hmm.
be accessed. It cannot be accessed directly by any means. Then providing access privilege to them does not make any sense, right? So you can,
Hmm.
it can be deductible. The third question can be deductible, but these two are very important. Protected
Hmm.
protected elements, when we get from our parent class, comes as a, comes with the visibility of the private
Hmm.
elements, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
the
Hmm.
second thing, access modifiers, so access privileges cannot be reduced while overriding.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
can assign a stronger access privilege while overriding, but cannot reduce the visibility, right? We require
Hmm.
this concept in our interface classes.